Good afternoon and welcome to today's Industry Week webcast, Avoiding Profit Killers in Manufacturing Maintenance and Operations, sponsored by Dude Solutions. My name is Jill Jusko and I am Associate Content Director with Industry Week. And before we begin, I'd like to explain how you can participate in today's presentation. First, if at any time you are having audio difficulties or slides are not advancing, simply hit your F5 key to refresh your webcast console. And if you have any technical difficulties during today's session, please press the Help button to receive assistance in solving common issues. This webinar technology allows you to resize the presentation by clicking the Maximize icon or by dragging the lower right corner to enlarge the window. And we welcome your questions during today's event. To submit your questions to today's presenter, simply type your question into the Q&A window on the left side of your screen and then hit the Submit button. We will be addressing as many questions as possible during the Q&A session that will follow the main presentation. But please feel free, and in fact, we encourage you to send in your questions at any time as they occur to you, and we will add them to the queue. Please also be aware that today's session is being recorded and will be available on the Industry Week website within the next week for you to review. You will be notified by email when that archive is available. On your console, the Dude Solutions logo is hot linked. If you'd like to visit their website during this webcast, you can simply click on that logo and a new window will open. This will not take you out of the webinar. And with that, I'd now like to welcome today's speaker. Joining us today is Paul LaChance. Paul is the Senior Manufacturing Advisor for Dude Solutions. He has spent his entire career devoted to optimizing maintenance teams by enabling data-driven decisions and actionable insights. He wrote his first CMMS system in 2004 and has since spent his professional career designing and directing CMMS and EAM systems. A regular speaker at national trade shows, he's been featured at IMTS, FabTech, and SMRP, as well as in several industry magazines. He currently serves as the Senior Manufacturing Advisor for Dude Solutions. And with that, Paul, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Jill. And it's an honor to be here today presenting to you all Avoiding Profit Killers in Maintenance and Operations with a focus on technology. So today's agenda, start off by talking about what I like to call the unsung heroes. We'll go through top profit killers and how to avoid them with an angle around software and technology. We'll touch a bit about this pandemic and how that has shaped the future of maintenance operations, especially in context of what we were talking about, avoiding profit killers today. And probably most importantly, how can you get started on this more profitable journey? This is the first of a three-pillar series focusing on software and technology. Be on the lookout for future webinars and around best practices and methodologies, also around services. So we'll be announcing those in future time. So let's start off with, what do maintenance people do? I had a mentor of mine pose that question early in my career. What do maintenance people do? And my instant response was, they fix broken things, which is technically correct. And it really talks to this legacy perspective that maintenance people are just there to fix broken assets. They kind of come out of their office in the basement, they're grimy, you only see them when they come in when something is down, so you're frustrated. It just, this legacy perspective, underfunded cost center, separate all by themselves, silo in an organization, and probably most egregious, underappreciated for what they do. This always bothered me. What do maintenance people really do today and the future perspective? And I'm really excited through my career, decades in this field, that we really started to see this shift, is maintenance people increase organizational and production capacity. They're integrated with many departments, including engineering, production, finance, on and on. and they are just as critical to organizational success and growth as any other members of that organization. For example, let's just say we need a 10% increase in production to match demand. And I understand right now in this COVID-19 era that it's tough to be thinking about you're really busy. You could translate this example to if you have to save costs as well. But you need to increase production to match demand. So option one, more of a traditional old school thought is, well, we need to increase production lines, add more assets, add more people, parts, maybe run an extra shift, whatever we need to do to increase that capacity. Or option two, if we can figure out a way to increase our uptime from, say, 89 to 94%, we can achieve the same goals a heck of a lot easier on our organization and a heck of a lot less expensive for our organization by simply increasing our uptime or decreasing our downtime. Maintenance people are just as responsible for profitability of an organization as anybody else in that organization by getting that increased uptime and a number of the other techniques that we'll talk about in this presentation today. They are unsung heroes within your organization. Who are we? Dude Solutions. We've been around for 20 years. We've been doing CMMS, maintenance-related software, this whole time. We have 10,000 plus customers. We've got a lot of experience around what it takes to enable maintenance organizations. Our primary product line is called Asset Essentials. It is a CMMS EAM solution. You can read more about that in the literature. So let's start by talking about the profit killers. Where are the profit killers? I'm going to break it in for today's presentation into 4 buckets. First one being labor, so things that are real obvious, too much overtime, but also like an improper balance of work for your people or having the wrong people for a particular role, ineffectiveness, not able to do their jobs they want, maybe even things like too much contract labor. The next bucket will be parts, stockouts, which is a real terrible profit killer. That's the concept of not having the right part you need when you need it. Poor ordering, poor management of parts, loss, missing, theft. Assets, downtime, killer, profit killer. Poor quality or what leads to scrap and rework. Too much energy usage, premature retirement of assets. And the final bucket will be compliance. So, if you're not in compliance, which can lead to fees, fines, insurance hikes, and bad will. Everything on this list is a profit killer. We're going to go through some examples of how we can do that. But before we do, I've put a poll up on your screen. So you should see a screen up right now. If you could take time to answer this question, and please don't forget to hit the submit button after you do. But which of these profit killers have impacted you the most? And you can check off any and all that apply here. So is it labor, overtime, the balance of work, ineffectiveness? Or is it parts, stockouts, poor ordering, poor management, loss or missing? Or is it around your assets? Is it the downtime that's hurting you? Or scrap and rework? You're using too much energy or raw materials? Or the dreaded premature retirement of an asset? And finally, compliance-related fees, fines, and insurance hikes, or possibly bad will with vendors and customers because you may be out of compliance. So if you could all just take a moment to answer any or all of those. I'm going to give everybody just a couple more seconds, and then I'll move it on to the next slide. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the results. So we can see a pretty good balance here, but it looks like asset-related leads the pack, but a decent balance of all of these. So thank you very much for doing that poll. So there are amazing industry statistics, and if you download this presentation, you can link to some of the data where this came from. If you use a CMMS system, a computerized maintenance management system, you are going to achieve some operational efficiencies. You are going to reduce costs. You are going to improve your profitability. And you can just look and see some of these stats here, 35 to 50% improvement in reliability of your equipment, 28% increase in maintenance productivity, 20% reduction in downtime, 19% savings in materials costs, You can look at all this data. 35% regular preventive maintenance can extend your life of your assets by as much as 35%. And the dollars, and we have all kinds of stories with our customers that $10,000 is just a drop in the bucket for some of them. If you have an excellent handle on your maintenance operations, you will improve your profitability. Information is key, and CMMS is the source for your maintenance-related operations. The car on the left, if you're driving down the road and the car starts shaking or smoking or you hear funny noises and you look at that dashboard, it's really hard to tell what's going on with that particular asset. The car on the right, you pretty much know everything that is going on with that asset at any given time. There's amazing metrics and there's amazing information that can tell you. That's what your CMMS system does. It gives you that information. It's key. That CMMS is the source of that, to know what is going on. Because if you can't measure something, you can't fix it. If you want to improve your profitability, you really have to start measuring, and that is the foundation for how you can improve. All right, so let's get into those four main buckets of profit killers and how we can avoid them using superior maintenance operations through CMMS. And we'll start with labor and staff for the first section. So where are the profit killers around labor in your team? Poor team planning. That's both preventive maintenance and, of course, corrective maintenance. Not having the right person with the right skills at the right time. Wasted paperwork, searching, the running around because you're just not sure where people are, what they're doing. Not having good instructions. How do I go about performing my maintenance? Good step-by-step instructions so I can do quality maintenance work the first time. Unnecessary overtime. There's also another one that's not on here, is a contract labor. Are you using too much contract labor? Could you be doing something of that in-house? Or are you optimizing how you're using your contractors? There's all kinds of ways your CMMS system can support this. To start with optimizing your team, scheduling your work. At the top half of that screen there, you can see how your team, and you can see who on your team is under or overutilized. My eyes are trained to those people in red. The people in red or yellow are not optimal. They are overscheduled for their work for the week. The people in green are either on schedule or underscheduled and could possibly take more work. So you really want to look at how are you scheduling your maintenance. At the bottom of that screen, you have the ability to move work orders around. You can change the people on the work orders. You can take people off. Really sort of fine-tune and optimize how your team is scheduled with a particular eye. Are they properly balanced? You don't want to overwork one person and underwork somebody else. It leads to all kinds of problems, including unnecessary overtime potentially, as well as morale-related issues. So really fine-tune the way your schedule works. Solid workflow escalation and notification. That yellow there is not supposed to be hiding something. It has a person's name underneath there, so I apologize for that. But this is a configuration screen. I'll tell you a little story. A good CMMS system, when a work order gets created, or even a maintenance request, if a request gets created and it's got a safety-related tag on it, safety issue. We all know safety issues are very important. In this particular example, if a safety work order gets created, we've configured our system to automatically associate an appropriate person, in this case maybe it's your safety officer or some sort of a supervisor. You can't see that, it's underneath that yellow. But they will automatically, when that work order gets created and there's a safety tag on it, that safety officer will automatically be associated to that work order. They'll receive an email notification telling them that they're a part of that work order, and it'll bump up the priority of that work order to critical. In our organization, for this example, we're just very serious about our safety-related work orders. So you can have excellent configuration in our Asset Essentials And so that workflow, that escalation, that notification, what it does is it really makes sure that everybody is appropriately in the loop with really good notification on your mobile device or in your email so we all know what is going on. This slide right here where that yellow splotch is, that column, if you train your eye down where that yellow splotch is, that's calculated criticality, which is underneath that. And what that is when you're looking at your work orders and you really want to optimize your team, you want to make sure people are working on the right work orders in the right priority. Some people will just look at the quote-unquote priority of a work order, which is good. It's a good start. We have a priority column, 2 over. But what's really important is you not only match up the priority of the work order, you also have to take into account the criticality of the asset. That's the next column next to it. And when you have those two, you can calculate a RIME index or a calculated criticality. That's that numerical value. In our system, the lower the number, the more critical that work order is. And so if you look at that, you can see there's work orders in here that are medium priority that are outranking high priority. Why? Because the calculated criticality, the RIME index says it should be. The assets we're working on for those work orders are more essential than the work orders for other assets. It's really important when you're focusing and optimizing your team that you're putting them on the right and most important work orders in the right order. And priority just isn't enough. A combination of priority and the criticality of that asset can really get you focused. You need to have solid instructions, step-by-step instructions. You see the left-hand upper part of that screen, step-by-step instructions. But you can also have pictures. You have links to videos and pictures that you can see. A picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a video's worth 100,000 words to show you exactly what you need to do. You can associate user's guides, standard operating procedures, safety procedures, and so forth to all of your instructions. You really want to make sure that your people have good instructions to get that work done correctly right away. Mobility. Making sure your team has instant access to anything they're working on wherever they are. The screen on the left, it shows me my work orders that I'm working on. I have those same step-by-step instructions. I can create maintenance requests, including taking a picture or add a photo to my maintenance requests or my work orders. But have all that same core capabilities you do from the browser, back at your computer in your office, and have it right there in the palm of your hand on an iPhone or an Android device really can streamline your labor process. Avoiding overtime. Again, avoiding overtime really comes back to making sure you have the right people properly balanced. We talked about this earlier, but my eyes are trained on that person, Scotty, who is overutilized, who may have to stay after to work on something when we probably could have maybe shifted some things around so we avoided overtime scenarios. We know those bottom 2 screens there. We know who our people are, how many hours they're working, what they're working on, who is overscheduled, who is underscheduled, and have that visibility throughout the system. We can really have a proper balance when we do that. You really just have to know what's going on. There's dashboards and KPIs that can show you great visibility. Like I said earlier, if you can't measure something, it becomes very difficult to fix it. So having this is one of our labor dashboard screens. Next section, we're going to talk about asset optimization. What are the profit killers around assets? Downtime, the queen and king of profit killers. I think maybe in the number one, because there's such lingering things that happen when we have unexpected, unplanned downtime. Wasted labor by production team due to that idle time is one of those auxiliary downsides of that asset going down on you. Assets that don't last or require needless repairs, stretching the life of the assets. That premature retirement of assets is an absolute profit killer. You might be using too much energy, too much parts, too much raw materials or other waste because of improperly operating assets. And then, of course, scrap and rework, another costly profit killer. So how can we avoid these? around our assets. Barcoding is a wonderful thing. Barcoding, going back to mobility. Training your eye on the left-hand side of the screen there, you can see sort of a highlighted. You can walk up to an asset, scan that barcode, scan that QR code, and in that center screen there, it'll just pop up right on your screen. Well, what do you need to do to that asset? Create a work order, show you your open work orders. Do you need to take meter readings? You can get right to those step-by-step instructions, those open work orders, the emergency shutdown procedures, right there at that asset with mobility combined with barcodes. Where's your downtime coming from? Downtime we know is a profit killer. You need to know where it's coming from. What assets is it coming from? What are your bad actors? What are the sources of downtime? You can look and see it broken down. Is it mechanical? Is it electrical? Is it training issues? Whatever it may be. Because if you know where your downtime is coming from, what assets it's coming from, you can focus to make improvements and improve it by making more proactive preventive maintenance or whatever you need to do to avoid that downtime and promote uptime, because that will really help you with your profitability. Should you repair or should you replace? I mean, we have all the work orders in the system. We know the costs of those work orders. We know theoretically, we know what the asset would cost to replace. You can use that information to really help you identify that repair versus replace. And that's where you can really start to see major cost savings. If you're spending tons of money to repair something and it may be more cost effective to just replace that asset, you've got that data, you've got that information to show you. Here's another example with our asset lifecycle analysis. So these are two assets here. They happen to be HVAC related assets. That air handler unit, you kind of train your eye across those two rows there. It's got a grade of a B. And those three colorful columns there, that asset was purchased a while ago. The years left is in red. It's actually 5 years and change older than we thought this asset was going to live. However, its frequency of failure, its cost trends are doing rather well. The boiler unit has got a grade of a D. Well, it's a newer asset. You notice its years left is in green, but it's not doing very well. How do we know this? If you look at the trend analysis, the air handler unit, the asset on the left, remember that's the older asset. Its costs are going down over time. That's good. Costs are going down for all the work orders you're performing on it. And below that is the number of days between events. Think of the mean time to failure. It's how often is this thing failing? Well, the number of days between events is actually extending for this asset. Although it's an older asset, it's performing rather well. The boiler unit is getting a grade of a D. It's a newer asset, but its costs are rising. Its frequency of failure is getting worse. So you can really take excellent looks at these assets, and it helps you answer, should I repair, should I replace? Now, this boiler unit's a newer asset, but it's not doing very well. The air handler unit is an older asset. It's doing great. Well, maybe I would might need to do more preventive maintenance on that boiler unit. Or is it a lemon? Who are the people working on that air handler unit? Pat them on the back. Or is it a contractor? Renew that contractor or buy that asset again. It's doing very well. So having that visibility can really help you with your profitability, with repair versus replace, stretching the life of your assets. Next bucket, we'll talk about parts and procurement. So where are the parts-related profit killers? Stockouts. We've all been there. You've got a critical asset producing parts or whatever it's doing for your operation, and it goes down. And not only are people mad because it went down unexpectedly, but you go to fix it and you don't have the part. That's a stockout. And we really want to avoid that stockout, especially in this COVID-19 area with the disruption in the supply chain. You may not be able to get that part quickly. So stockouts are an absolute profit killer. You want to avoid them. Too much inventory on hand. You want to have an optimal inventory on hand, not too much. Poor part management, physical count, location, poor ordering processes, loss, missing, and theft. So let's go through some examples of how CMMS can help you avoid that. It all starts with solid parts management. You got to know your parts. You got to know the part numbers, the supplier part numbers, who you order it from, where you store it in your facility, your quantity on hand, quantity reserved, quantity available. Just good visibility from your mobile device, from your browser. It starts with having just good parts management. Avoiding stockouts. Well, once we have our parts in the system and we know exactly how much we have on hand, it's kind of that upper left-hand part of the screen. If we look on the right-hand side of the screen, actually in the bottom center part of the screen there, we know the parts we're low on. It's right on our dashboard when we sign into Asset Essentials. It's right in our face. We can receive an email notification when you're low on parts. So we know in advance, if you're paying attention and you have good information in the system, you know exactly the parts that you better order to avoid the stockouts in the first place. That screen on the right-hand side where it's kind of highlighted in yellow, there's all kinds of tips and tricks you can use in a good CMMS system. In this case here, when you make a PM, you can specify the parts you're going to need for that PM. And you can say whether you're going to dispatch them immediately or you're going to do a part reservation process, or you're going to do an ordering process. We know those parts we need to have for that PM. We can kit those parts. And we can know that when we go to do that PM, we have what we need when we go to do that work. That will make that PM go quicker and avoid that extended downtime if we can really have a handle on our parts. Just-in-time ordering. So this is an example where this part, this press piston, and I've got this piston in multiple plants in my operation, or maybe I have multiple storerooms in one plant if that's how you operate. Well, in the old days, and we have customers, there's a great story that I had that a customer told me how they use this, is they had expensive parts at every one of their plants, and this is all across the country. Well, and the part that they had was not only expensive, it was from a place, and this happened to be from Germany, long lead time to get it. Everybody was stocking this part. It was very, very expensive. So what they did is they went to a just-in-time ordering process. Everybody still has a few of these parts, but not as many as they used to. And as they get low, they do a transfer from one facility to another. Just-in-time ordering. If you've got visibility across your whole enterprise to what you have on hand, you don't necessarily have to order that expensive part from Germany that's going to take 2 weeks to get to you. You can get it from your brother or sister plant or your brother or sister stock room in your same plant right away. That excellent visibility and just-in-time ordering can be a major help. Taking physical count. Once in a while, you got to count your parts. It shows you where you might have loss, possibly theft, waste. But identify those parts that you want to take physical count of. See the variance of those parts and really have a good handle of your parts room. The final bucket we're going to talk about today is compliance. So there are many forms of compliance. Most people, when we think of compliance, we think of, in sort of general manufacturing, we think of your ISO certification, your ISO compliance. And I know there's a variety of them, but for this example, we'll just go with it within the ISO 9000 family, which seems to be one of the most common ones, which really is all about quality management. So ISO, the 9000 family, 9001, helps ensure that customers get good, consistent quality products and services, which brings the many business benefits. This goes beyond maintenance. This just, the ISO 9000 and quality management and having a good QMS system, which is independent of CMMS, but it just makes sure that you as an organization are operating efficiently and smartly, and you have good business processes. I'm not going to read all those bullets down there, but those are the bullets of what are the benefits of having a good quality management system. And when you go to get certified for ISO 9000 and within that family of different certifications, you're going to have to prove those things. Well, there are very specific things that you're going to have to prove where your CMMS can be a big help. So if you get audited, you are going to have to show your auditor that you are recording your preventive maintenance on your key assets. I would argue you should be doing it on all your assets because they're all important, but especially those key assets. that you've documented and verified solid work procedures. Think back to those step-by-step instructions we talked about earlier. Verifying your safety inspections, proper and on schedule. Repair or replace malfunctioning equipment. Reports and documentations for audits. When you sit there and that auditor is asking you a question and you can pull that right up, you're going to look so much better in that audit process. Tracking health and safety, training and certifications, archiving work history, and documenting incidents. So we can do all this in a good CMMS system. So first off, with compliance, solid workflow is really, really important. The screen on the right, I'm going to talk about the screen on the right first. And this is a configurational screen. Your everyday users would never see this. And again, it's just a story I'll tell. When you build out your CMMS solutions, especially through the help of, say, Dude Solutions and our implementation services, it's all about making sure that your CMMS can match your processes. And so, like, for example, if I have a work order that is greater than a certain cost, I might have to have an approval process kick in. Or if I require digital signatures at different points in time, maybe when I'm closing a work order, that you can set those things up. That screen on the left is a digital signature. So you can make the system adhere to how you run your operations. Solid workflow will help you do that. And that's really important when you're proving your compliance and adhering to your compliance processes. Documenting your safety programs, your quality management, our safety module, everything from your safety data sheets, your permits, your lockout tagout procedures, startup procedures, really any safety, PP&E policies, any of that type of documentation should be in your CMMS system. It should be associated to those assets, to those preventive maintenance and corrective maintenance work orders, to those parts. Have that all right there in your fingertips, your mobile device, in your browser, so you can not only can you show that to an auditor, but it's just going to be available to anybody who needs to see that information when they're going to perform that work or need to look up those different policies and procedures. Tracking your employee certifications, their trainings, that screen on the left, you can have a generic list of all of your trainings. Really, whatever it is, you can build it out in here. For each person, that bottom right-hand screen there, Rick Grimes, you can see, what certifications do they have? When are they going to expire? You can get notifications. There's reports that'll show you when they're going to expire. So again, this is one of the things that the auditor may ask you to show. It's definitely in the requirements. Having that right there at your fingertips, just pull up a report for that auditor, really can make that process go a lot easier. Not to mention the benefit of tracking all of this for your people. Employee incident tracking. OSHA 300 type stuff. You can put any of those incidents in the system, track them, the resolution, and produce a report that looks very much like the incident report for OSHA, the 300, or whatever that form is that you have to post on your break room. But have all that right there in your CMMS system. You got to be able to prove your preventive maintenance. So like the left-hand screen there is a list of PMs. And you can see what assets are they for, all those preventive maintenance routines. The right-hand upper part is when you're scheduling them, daily, weekly, monthly. Is it based on a meter reading, usage type thing? And those step-by-step instructions. You will need to prove this in that ISO audit process. And you'll also have to show the work that was done to those assets. This is a summary of completed preventive maintenance work orders, in this case for a variety of assets. But it's just one of many ways that you can pull up in the system all of the PMs that you've been working on. So let's just take a couple of minutes, the impact of COVID-19. Because I really believe that what we're learning in this pandemic is going to help us in our profitability or cost reduction journey as we continue to move out of this. So one of the things that I think is really important about what COVID-19 has done to us, it just showed the importance of being lean with our maintenance operations. Efficient, lean, continuous improvement. CMMS can support this. So there's so many stories about how you might have a reduced workforce, furlough, or because of people might be susceptible and they can't be in your operations, and we've all had to figure out how can we get our work done that we still have to get done with a reduced or redeployed workforce. Those efficiency things that we need to do. If you think back to a lot of the labor efficiencies that we talked about that can bring us to a profitability journey, that was so important to help us in these tough COVID-19 times, which essentially will help us be more efficient, more lean. The concept of working from anywhere, it's possible. I mean, I've always believed in the work from anywhere concept, but I've also seen how difficult it is for manufacturing operations. It's amazing what people have been able to pull off through cloud-based software that's accessible wherever you are, as well as mobility. Whether you're walking around your plant, you're walking in your house, and be able to pull up those work orders and help your team continue to get the work done anywhere, anytime you're at. I don't care if it's when you're busy or when you're slow. These people that are super busy in the pandemic, maybe you're doing PP&E or whatever products you create are keeping you more busy. You need to be lean and efficient because you just got more work than you can handle. Likewise, if you're slow, where can we trim costs? Where can we be more efficient? Where can we stretch the life of our assets? So these things, the profit killers and how to avoid them go hand in hand, whether you're busy or slow, whether it's cost reduction or just simply going for more profitability, one and the same. This leads into this quote-unquote changing and aging workforce. 50% of facility personnel, operations-related personnel, are set to retire in the next 10 years. We are an aging society. There's a lot of people in our operations that will not be there. They're setting to retire. We need to capture the legacy of these veteran men and women, what they do. I always use the example, if you got that person on your team who can change that filter blindfolded in a hurricane, well, it's not so easy for that next generation of people to do these things. We need to capture that person's experience. Create a video of them doing that. Have good step-by-step instructions. That's all got to be in your CMMS. So this changing and aging workforce, which will have a continual impact on manufacturing operations for the years to come, CMMS can help you with that. CMMS in general isn't only going to help you in this COVID-19 era, but it's going to help you for the next major curveball as well. So let's recap. We're on the home stretch here, everybody. This is a process. It's a continuous improvement process. Don't be intimidated. If you're looking back at this presentation and you're thinking, my gosh, I don't even know where to get started on this, don't be intimidated. Dude Solutions is beside you, can help you take those baby steps. That circular process on the right-hand side of the screen, you're gonna pick your biggest areas of concern. You're gonna assess, that's section 1. What do you have going on in your operations you'd like to improve? It's probably going to be too big of a list for you to tackle at once. Prioritize it. Pick the most egregious problems. Make a plan from that. Execute that plan. And over time, you start to move into maintenance mode here where, hey, we're making steady improvements on this. We're right back at the beginning. Pick the next thing. Every time you go around this circle, you will continue to get more and more cost reductions, and you will continue to drive profitability. Involve your whole team in this, strategically at appropriate points. You want to get buy-in from the team. Don't just force software on them. It's a continuous improvement process. Progress is contagious. And again, if it's an intimidating process, that's what we do. We don't just sell software. We have services, training, videos, implementation consulting. We're here to help you make these things come true. The spectrum of maintenance operations, you move from that firefighting mode in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. Some of you on this webinar today might be in that mode. Those of you who are moving more towards profitability, more towards a preventive maintenance environment, you're going to be that calm, cool, and collected, enlightened one where you really are more in control of your operation. So not only is it going to improve your profitability, it's really going to make your life and your job much easier. So one final poll, it should appear on your screen. This poll is in a pop-up window and will stay there for a period of time. It's just more about if you'd like to have more information. So if you could please just take a moment to answer that. And don't forget to hit the submit button when you're done with it. I'm going to just say a big thank you. We're going to switch over in a moment here to the Q&A, but it's always an honor to do these presentations. Hopefully you got some value out of it. At this point, I'm going to hand it back over to Jill, and we'll take some time for some Q&A.
Okay, thank you very much for that excellent presentation. I also want to remind our audience, we are going to jump into Q&A. If you have a question that you have not submitted yet, please do it now, and we will do our best to get to it, as well as all the other questions that already have come in. I would also ask that while our presenter is answering your questions, that you please take time to complete the feedback form that is on the lower left side of the toolbar. So with that, let's jump right into our questions. And the first one we have here is from Brian, who asks, how do you measure stockouts? Is there a way in the CMMS?
Yes, definitely. You really do have to measure them. And there's a variety of ways to do it. I mean, one of the most easy ways to do that is to make sure that you know if within that work order, you have to have a tag that the work order was impacted because of a stockout. I've seen people do this a variety of ways. They might use a problem cause code around that, or you might even build a custom field to indicate that. Especially with notes to say that the downtime was extended because of the fact that there was a stockout. Again, the idea here is you're going to hopefully not have stockouts in the first place. We all know that sometimes circumstances go beyond our control. But yeah, Brian, and one of the most key things is if you're going to look at the origin of where your downtime is coming, if stockouts are plaguing you, which really indicates that you need to do some work around your parts and procurement processes, that's going to show up as a KPI identified dashboard object so that you clearly are seeing that that is one of the sources of your downtime. So again, it just depends upon how you want to categorize that, but it's going to be tied into when those work orders get created.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, I guess a comment and a question. The comment, management has often ignored my ideas of getting a CMMS due to cost. Do you have any advice?
Yes. You talk not about the cost of the CMMS, but you talk about the cost reductions and the improved profitability that you will get because of a well-implemented CMMS. I mean, the data that is out there from our clients for the cost savings, I mean, again, we talked about that. You want to move from an 89 to a 95% uptime. You can directly translate to every time an asset's down, most organizations can calculate by the minute or by the hour what it's costing their organization for that downtime. A CMMS system, the cost to do that will often pay for itself very, very quickly. So rather than focus on the cost of the CMMS, focus on the benefits and the cost savings. And that's where, if you just simply have that conversation, if you do reach out and want to know more about this solution, and you're talking to one of our account executives, they'll arm you with white papers and use cases with dollars and cents that will show you what other customers have saved. Simply compare that to what it would cost for the CMMS. It's a no-brainer. I mean, most people will talk about a CMMS paying for itself in a matter of weeks or months, from the point it's well implemented, and it just snowballs in a positive way from there.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We have another question, and this person asks, I have a CMMS system already, but it's not helping me in the ways that you spoke about during the webinar. How can I get to this level, and can I move my data into a new system?
You definitely can migrate your data. We have people that come to our solutions from other systems that just were not getting the value out of their solution. And there's often a number of reasons why. I mean, is the system not a good system? Was it not properly implemented? When you're looking at CMMS, don't just think about the software. You need to think about a combination of the software, making sure that it's properly configured and properly set up. So that comes with those services we talked about. So just making sure that you've had good goals and objectives and that they've been modeled in how the software is configured. Make sure that people are properly trained on it. And the data, you got to make sure the data in there is good quality data and really matches how your operations are set up. And if you think back to your CMMS and you're not getting what we're talking about right here on this, then you really definitely need to talk, because it's not just a software project. And I don't want to intimidate people thinking that you got to get into some heavy consulting. You don't have to. You can use video trainings and things of that nature, but it's the combination of the software and the services that can really help make sure you got a good quality implementation, and then in turn get the profitability.
Okay, we have another question, and this one is from Carolyn, who asks, I've wanted to use mobile devices but have some concerns about my team abusing the privilege. What advice do you have to avoid that issue?
That's a very good question. That was the common concern. I've been doing mobile CMMS for a couple of decades now, I'm sorry to say, or happy to say, I guess. You always run the risk of people who are actively allowed to use a mobile device day-to-day in their operations that they could abuse it. But to me, I see a mobile device, and again, mobile devices, some customers will actually acquire devices that they hand out at the beginning of the shift. The majority of people these days are allowing their staff to use their personal devices, Android and or Apple, because it's just a tool. It's a tool no different than a thermal camera or a multimeter or a screwdriver. It's a tool to help them get their job done. So if they're playing Candy Crush or checking scores on ESPN, that's a different problem. I would not disallow my team to use those mobile devices because of that, unless you have some concern to do it, because these tools can really improve their operations.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Our next question says, let me see, it says, how long does it take to get a system like yours up and operational?
A lot of people will ask the question, they want to have it measured in days or weeks or hours or months. Everybody's different. I get that question a lot. You can, once you start this journey, and once you start to get your data in and start to have basic use of the system, and again, that's why I always think of this as a continuous improvement process. You don't need to use every aspect of a CMMS on day one. It's too intimidating. Put your critical assets that you're most worried about in there, and just the basic information. And even if you only use it to give you an automatic reminder to perform a task, even if you don't even have the tasks quite in the system yet, because maybe it's on a printed piece of paper that's laminated to the asset. You can start basic. You can start with baby steps, and you can start quickly seeing the benefit and the value of what a CMMS can do for you. Now, Over time, you really want to supplement that and go deeper and have better quality data, have more assets in the system, start to take on your parts and your requesting process. But it's a continuous circular process. So again, what I don't like to see is people try to tackle every single feature and function of a system on day one. Start basics and work from there. And again, that's where our consulting services will really help you identify where you're going to get that initial bang for the buck and then grow from there.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We have our next question. Do my maintenance people need to be technology experts to use a CMMS?
That's a good question. You know, back in the day, there was major concern that, you know, you'd hear, my team, they can't handle using software. You know, today's CMMS, and I can say very specifically at Asset Essentials, the quality of the user interface, that user experience, the way the screens are laid out, both on the mobile device and in the regular browser, you have to create software that is powerful and flexible, but more important than all of those is it's got to be easy to use, especially for the older generation of maintenance people that might be a little bit more intimidated. The younger generation, they're a lot more comfortable around software in general. But no, I think that pretty much everybody's gone to the point now where they're accepting that software will be a part of their day-to-day operations, and a good, well-designed, with clean and easy-to-follow screens. They absolutely don't have to be technology experts at all, and can get that value pretty quickly without being too intimidating.
Okay, thank you, Paul. With that, we are going to wrap up today's presentation. I'd first like to thank our speaker, Paul LaChance, as well as our sponsor, Dude Solutions. And of course, I'd like to thank our audience for their kind attention and questions this afternoon. As a reminder, if you are registered as a group, please add the names and the emails of everybody in attendance on the exit survey. And with that, on behalf of Industry Week, have a tremendous, productive remainder of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.